Hello Year 3, welcome to your second science lesson. Our topic this half term is plants. Your key question today is, can you name the parts of a plant? We looked at that briefly last week, and your learning objective is to explain the functions of different parts of the plant. That word function just means what is its job. So, for example, the function of a kettle is to boil water. Before we get into answering our key question today, I wanted to remind you all that there are hundreds of thousands of different types of plants on Earth. I don't want you to just picture flowers when we're thinking about plants. They are bushes and brambles. The grass is a plant. Trees are a plant, and they grow in fields and forests, deserts and mountains. There are hundreds of thousands of different type of plants. So I've popped some pictures up on there for you if you want to pause and just have a little look further in there. Now, plants are alive, just like me and you, and they need air and food and water to grow. And different parts of plants give them food and help them to get water around. And we're going to find out about those functions now. No, we're not. We've got a diagram first. Sorry, boys and girls. Before I move on, let's have a look. We did this last week. I have blanked out some labels here, and there are 6 on there. I just want you to pause the video, see if you can label those parts. Okay, up on this label here, we have the leaves. Down here we have the stem. Look, the label is pointing to the stem there. On a tree, remember that is a tree trunk, not a stem. We have roots down here, all of these little bits down the bottom. And we have a flower, fruit, which don't appear on all plants, remember, and seeds there that are on the floor. I'm going to find out more about them in a minute. Okay, the first function that we are going to look at are the leaves on plants. I want you to think of it a little bit like a food factory. That's where all of the food is made. The leaves have a green substance on them called chlorophyll, and the chlorophyll uses water and sunlight and carbon dioxide from the air to make food from the plant. So you can see on the diagram here, so these are the sun's rays that are coming down into the light. This dark blue line here, get my colour there, it shows a gas called carbon dioxide that we cannot see. It's actually what we breathe out, goes into the leaf, and the water is coming from the roots at the bottom. This other blue line here is actually oxygen coming out of the leaves, and that is what we breathe in. Now, this is called a really fancy word called photosynthesis. So leaves are there for photosynthesis. They make the food for plants. The next part we're going to look at is the stem or the trunk, and this is the part here. Just pause for a moment. What do you think the stems or the trunks are used for? Okay, there are 2 functions, 2 jobs of the stems or the trunks. One of the functions is to help water get to all areas of the plant. So water travels through parts of the plant. Another of the reasons is to support. Just like our skeleton supports us in staying upright, the stems or the trunks hold them up, and they have to try and reach sunlight. So they normally have straight stems so they can try and get into sunlight to get that, to keep photosynthesis, to get their food. So they transport water around the plant, and they support. The next one is roots. Roots have two jobs. Long roots, they fix a plant firmly into the ground so that they don't fall over in windy days. You may have seen, especially on some of the English videos, I was at my maths video that I've done, and there was a tree uprooted. I'll pop that onto Teams as a picture for you to have a look at, that had actually fallen out, the roots had came out of the ground. And the second job the roots have is to collect water, suck up goodness from the soil, and then transport it to the stem or the trunk and help it get around the flower, the plant, sorry, not the flower, the tree, the bramble, the bush, all of those plants. I've put these three together. I put flowers, fruit and seeds together because they all have the similar job. Now, some plants have flowers, and the flowers are usually colourful or perfumed, and they attract insects or other animals. And you'll have seen this with bees, especially in the summertime. And so the bees or the visitor would feed on drops of nectar that are inside the flower. And as they're feeding, they pick up the yellow dust, which is the main bit of the flower here. It's called pollen. And then they take that to another flower. And when the pollen rubs onto the second flower, they can start making seeds. All right, so I popped seeds in here. And I've popped fruit up here because fruit have seeds inside of them. And all of these are used to create new plants. So on this slide here, you can see if the seeds from plants can travel in different ways. So the wind can blow seeds from plants. The animals that we've just spoken about, similar to flowers, can pick up seeds and move them. They may burst. Water could carry the seeds away, or humans moving the seeds, and they all create new plants. And I popped some diagrams on there to show you. So if there is a tomato plant on there, a seed may be blown out or carried by an animal or into a river, and it goes and plants itself into the soil, and then it becomes a seedling, begins to grow, becomes a plant flowers, and we just go round and around. Okay, and this diagram down here shows when a seed is in the soil and it begins to grow. These are some, I've put on two unusual plants, and some of the things are similar and some of them are a little bit different to what we've just spoken about. So cactuses, they have a thick stem, this bit here. So they have a stem, it's the same as the plants that we've just discussed, but this time the stem is used to create photosynthesis. Now, can you remember when we spoke about trees and plants earlier, what created photosynthesis? It wasn't the stem. Have a think. It was the leaves. So that is a slight difference in the function of a cactus, of the parts of a cactus. They also have roots, which is the same as the other plants, and they spread far and wide and they collect water in. Another difference that the cactus has is it has little spikes on here, and they also collect water, but they also stop animals from eating the plant. Now, none of the plants that we'd spoke about earlier had spikes on them. This is another type of plant that is slightly different. It's called a date palm tree. You may have seen these when you've gone on holiday. Again, it has a trunk, just like some of the trees we'd spoken about. It keeps it upright, and it transfers the water through. But the trunk has another function in a date palm tree. It absorbs. When I say the word absorb, I want you to think of a sponge, and you put it in water, and the sponge sucks up all the water. It absorbs moisture from the air. It takes in water. It has deep roots, which are used to absorb the water from the soil, which is the same as what we had already discussed. And the leaves, not for photosynthesis this time, but they stop water from escaping out from the tree through evaporation, and they grow hard, and they stop animals from eating them. Now, your tasks today. Task 1, let's explain the functions of a flowering plant. So if you would like, go back to the beginning, and you're going to look at the roots, the stem, the flower, and the leaves. And I want you to explain what the job of each of those is. And your second task is task 2, to watch a video about carnivorous plants and identify some differences between plant functions. Carnivorous plants are very interesting, and they're very different to the flowering plants that we have learnt about this morning. So head on over. I put a video link in there, and I just want you to watch and give me a brief explanation, so type it up or write it, of how they are different to flowering plants.